Alright, so in this video I'm going to show you how to install and set up Express, which is a Node module. It's a pretty big module. It's a framework that gives us a routing system. It gives us the ability to add different template engines, utility methods, and all types of stuff. So first thing we're going to do is I have this folder, MyExpress, which is blank, and I have my command line opened in that folder. So we're going to go ahead and run npm init. Okay, and that's going to create a package.json file for us. So we'll say simple express application. And for the entry point, I'm going to call it app.js. And then just enter through the rest of those. And that should create a package.json file. Alright, so now we're going to open that up. Let me just snap this to the side here. And let's see, what do I want? This right here. So this is expressjs.com. This is the documentation and all that for Express. So you might want to look through that in addition to these videos. And you can see that how we install this is npm install express. Now we can run that, and if we add the save flag, it'll get added to this package.json file. But then I want to show you another way we can install modules, and that's by adding them to this file and then just running npm install. So I'm going to put a comma right here, and we're going to create dependencies, which will be an object, and we want to install Express. And then here would be the version number we want to use. Now I want the latest version, so you can actually use an asterisk for that. And then there's one other module I want to install, which is called body parser. And that's used to parse various content, JSON, HTML. It allows you to get data from forms if you want to do that, and some other stuff. So we're going to use that, and we'll get the latest version. And then I'm going to go ahead and save this. And now they're not installed yet. What we need to do is go back to our command line and then run npm install. And it'll look in that file in the dependencies and install anything that's there. Okay, so now if we go back to our folder, which I'm going to open up in my editor. So let's see, we're in C drive, I think. Projects, MyExpress. Okay, so you can see now we have a Node modules folder with Express and body parser. So those have been installed. And I'm just going to make this thinner and this wider. Okay, so now that we have that, we need to create our entry file, which is going to be app.js. So we'll say new file, save as app.js. And in here, first thing we're going to do is bring in Express. So we're going to say require Express. Okay, and I'm also going to bring in the body parser. Like that. And let's also bring in the path module, which is a system module. It's used to work with file paths. And that should be all we need to bring in for now. Now to instantiate our Express application, we need to set a variable. We're going to call it app, and we're going to set it to Express. Okay. Now, I want to talk about middleware for a second. Okay, Express has this concept of middleware, which is basically a function that has access to the response and request objects. Okay, every time we load a web application, we have a request-response cycle, and middleware gives access to those methods, to those objects. So there's various things that they can do. They can execute any code, so whatever program, whatever you want to run. They also can make changes to the request and response objects. They can end the request and response cycle, and they can also call the next middleware function in the task. Alright, so a lot of the modules, such as body parser, they have their own middleware that we need to set up. Alright, and we can also create our own middleware. So to give you an example, we could say something like app.use. Okay, that's how we can call the middleware, and that takes in a function, and it has access to the request, the response, and the next objects. And then we could do whatever we want. Okay, so let's say console.log, and let's say we want to show the time. So we'll say time, and then we'll say date.now. Alright, and then when you're done with your functionality, you want to just call next. Okay, and that'll just call the next piece of middleware. Alright, so that's some custom middleware. Now body parser has its own, which is just a couple lines, so we're going to put that in. So we have app.use, and we're going to paste in here, or not paste in, but type in body parser.json, and then we want app.use body parser.url encoded, and then we just pass in there an object with extended set to false. Okay, so that's the middleware that's required for body parser. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take that app object and we're going to call listen, and then pass in a port we want to listen on. So we'll say port 3000, and then I'm just going to do a console.log, and we'll say server started on port 3000. Alright, and you may want to put the port in its own variable, and then we'll just do that. Alright, and then finally we need to export this by saying module.export app. Alright, so let's go ahead and save that, and then we're going to go over here. We're going to say node app, because app.js is the name of the file. Okay, that's running on port 3000, so we'll go to localhost 3000, and you'll see that we get this cannot get slash. So the reason we're getting this is because it's looking for a route. Okay, a route is basically a URL that's going to map to a specific function. Alright, and the slash represents the home page, so it's looking for the home page route and it's not finding it. So what we need to do over here is create that route. So we're going to go right under where we have the middleware, and we're going to say app.get. Okay, now the reason I'm using get is because this is the route for a get request. When you visit a web page, it's 99% of the time it's going to be a get request to the HTTP server. When you submit a form, usually that's a post request. So a good way to think of it is a get request is getting something from the server. A post request is usually made to post something to the server. So for instance, when you sign up for a website, you're registering your information, you're uploading that to the server. And then you also have a put request, which is usually updating content that's already there, and then a delete request, which of course deletes content. So we want a get request, and we want it to go to slash, which is basically the URL without any full file or folder. So slash, and then second parameter will be a function, and that's going to take in a request and response. Okay, and then for now, let's just say res.send, and just put in here, we'll say hello world. Okay, save that. Now if I reload, it's not going to, nothing changes because we need to restart the server. Alright, now, oh, and you can see the time is showing too. That's from our middleware. Now, a good utility to use with Node.js is NodeMon. And what that does is it'll watch your file, it'll watch your application to see if you save it and anything changes. If you do, it'll reload the application for you. So let's do a Control-C and get out of this for a minute. And we're going to install NodeMon globally. So say npm install nodemon, and then -g. Alright, and then you should be able to run that from anywhere since it's global. Alright, so let's go in here and say nodemon. Okay, so you can see it's watching port 3000. If I reload, we get hello world. Now let me just do an update here. I'll just put an exclamation and save it. And then if we go back over to our browser and reload, you'll see that it updated without us having to restart the server. Now let's say we wanted to make a route for an about page. So if we go app.get and then say /about, and here we'll say about page, save that, and then if we try and go to /about, we get about page. Okay, so we can now create as many routes as we want. Now this is the dynamic way to do things. In the next video I'm going to show you how to load up a template, how to use a template engine, but I also want to show you, before we do that, how you can use static pages as well. Okay, so if you have an HTML page you want to load and you don't want to use a template or go through routes or anything, you can easily create a new folder. Let's call it public, and that's where we'll want to put all of our static files. So let's say new file, we'll save it as hello.html, and then what we need to do is go to our app.js, and we need to tell the system what folder to look for to use as our static folder. Alright, so up here you can see we imported path, so we're going to use that, and there's just one line of middleware we need to add. So I'm going to say app.use, and in here we're going to say express.static, and then in here we're going to pass in path.join, and in here we want to use a double underscore and then dir name, which is basically telling it we want the current directory. Actually, wait, there's no parentheses there. Okay, so we're going to put a comma and then put in the name of the folder, which in our case is public, and you can call it whatever you'd like. Alright, actually, you know what, there should be 3 on that side. Alright, so let's go ahead and save that. Now, if we go up here and we go to /hello.html, and let's actually put something in it. Alright, so we'll save that, reload, and we get hello world. Okay, so you can put all your static files in there. This is also usually where you would put your style sheets, client-side JavaScripts, things like that, jQuery. You would put it in there, and then you could just simply point to it. For example, let's say new file, we'll save it as style.css, and we'll say body, and we'll give it a background. Alright, so now in my index file here, I can say link style sheet, and I should just be able to point to style.css. And there we go. Alright, so that's how we can include static files. So in the next video, like I said, I'm going to give you an example of a template engine we can use so that we can actually load templates and render pages rather than just text.